you're talking about bringing on more police essentially to help answer calls and then more prosecution.
Well, I think what I'm saying, I did a piece for you referring to Chicago as a sanctuary city for criminals because of the way they're not charged. Or do you realize that with the SAFE Act, right? With the Safety Act, they eliminated bail, and that something like well over 60,000 of those individuals who were released, who no bail, they committed crimes. Many of them are felons, and they were sent home. They blew off their court date. They didn't show up for court. Well, they should have all been arrested. Their bail should have immediately been denied. They got a postcard given a new court date.
And they're just still, they just wander around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, if I blow off my court date and I get a traffic ticket, they don't send me a postcard. They find me guilty and that's it. I'm screwed. You know what I mean?
So you have to pay.
Tougher. Yeah, the city's been tougher on people for driving between the red light cameras and the speed cameras and the parking ticket cameras than they are for people missing their court date. I mean, I'm talking about felons out on pretrial release, and they get a postcard because they simply blew off their court date. I mean, that's how absurd it is. I just think there's this anti-cop bias. And let me point out that there is a direct correlation between the number of police officers you have and violent crime. Now, when I was city budget director, I came in the previous year, there had been almost 1,000 murders in Chicago. And in part, we decided to hire more cops rather than pay enormous amounts in overtime. And of course, the Clinton cop bill provided additional funding, and we increased police strength to about 13,400 from about 11,500. And violent crime began to decline. And the murder rate, which had been 800, 900, the murder rates fell to the 400s for about, I think, over a period of 10 years. In 8 of those years, the murders were below 500. Now, that's still way too many, but the bottom line is there was a significant reduction in murders. When Rahm Emanuel came in and he didn't fill 2,000 police vacancies, the murder rate skyrocketed again. When he restored those police vacancies, it fell. And then when Lightfoot came in and she didn't fill the vacancies, it skyrocketed. And then when she started filling the vacancies, it fell. So there definitely is a pattern. And you have to understand, you don't save money by defunding the police because the police shortages are
lead to overtime.
Overtime. I mean, I paid $35 million in overtime when we were at full capacity. You know, that about 25 years ago, Chicago Police Department. In today's dollars, it would be about $60 million in overtime. Rahm Emanuel paid $100 million in overtime. When the police department was at full strength, when Lightfoot cut the funding eliminated the positions, I think they reduced police strength by 1,700. She ended up spending $300 million in overtime,
which is where I think it is now. What with Johnson?
I say it was about 250. But the bottom line is the overtime with that amount, just the difference between what Rahm paid when this overtime, when the police strength was close to full strength compared to what they're spending now, that difference could pay for another 1,200, 1,400 cops. It's the same thing on the CTA. This is the absurdity of CTA. There are more police assigned, or almost as many police assigned to the mayor's detail, security detail, and the police department has as many consent decree consultants as the CTA has full-time Chicago police officers assigned to providing security on public transit.
Which is arguably where people feel worried, right? You know, on a train, you never know who's going to get on, or on violence.
The CTA is in crisis in large part because their ridership is down. They're still down about a third of what they were pre-COVID. And the number one reason people don't ride the train is because they feel the train is unsafe. So, and what do you expect when you have, 130 officers assigned? I mean, how many stations do they have? How many hundreds of miles of tracks do they have? Or how many, what do they have, like 350 trains or something? I mean, really? Are you kidding me? But yet they're spending money on private security. And you see them. You can see them on YouTube. Whenever they're running from an event or they're slugging it out. I mean, I don't know what the physical standards are, the physical educations or the, physical standards are for hiring. But the bottom line is they're low paid, they're untrained, they don't have the power of arrest, they're unarmed. So with the money they spend on security, they could hire another 400 Chicago police officers and assigned them to patrolling police transit stations and walking platforms and even riding trains undercover. And they could significantly improve security, which in turn would increase ridership and help the CTA, which is also facing a financial crisis, balance their budget. So this is not rocket science.
I think it's interesting to hear you talk just because when it comes to public safety, people go so much. You hear so much yelling from the extremes. You mentioned defund the police group. You also have, a more conservative take. So I think what Chicago is really missing is something just more rational. Okay, Paul, given everything, your breadth of experience, what do you forecast happens in Chicago the next few years? What are the likely current events that take place, and what do you think needs to happen?
Well, look, I think Johnson's going to be a one-termer no matter what. He hopes that Trump will help revitalize him, because you see with Kurtzker too, everything is Trump this, Trump that. They're going to blame Trump from everything, from sinking of the Lusitania to the Chicago fire. So he's hoping that he's going to be able to revive his fortunes by basically doubling and tripling down on the race card, and of course, basically attacking Trump. And I think I think some of his popularity might be restored because of that, but I think it's going to fall far short because people are getting tired of his shtick. I mean, every answer to every question is a campaign slogan, and you can only double and try. You see it in the black community's approval ratings.
Everywhere in Chicago, he's not very popular.
Yeah, I don't see it changing.